Everybody, we welcome you to our Thursday night platform. Let's talk about it. Few of you have joined in. Hopefully, some more will come in. Um, we will be on Facebook Live tonight, and this is our part two segment tonight. We have with us tonight our special guest from last week, Tawana Hogue, who shared her story last week about some things that she dealt with in her marriage. And on the heels of that, she found out that she had been diagnosed with cancer. So I'm going to bring her on tonight for those who weren't on last week, for her to tell us a little bit about herself. And then we're going to get into part two of the segment of I'm Still Standing and deal with, hear her testimony about being a cancer survivor. So Tawana, come on and share a little bit with us tonight for those who may be the first time that didn't get a chance to hear you last week, and share with us tonight. Tell them who you are, where you're from.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Tawana Hogue. I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a writer, author, businesswoman. I am a mother of three. I have two in college, one in high school. The book that I've written is called Through It All, I'm Still Standing, bringing awareness to narcissistic behavioral disorder and emotional abuse. And I've also written a book that hasn't been published yet, but it's called There's Something I Need to Tell You All, Mommy Has Cancer. I've also published a magazine. I launched it this summer called Empower Atlanta Magazine. The magazine is compelled to inform, inspire, and to make a difference.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for giving us a introduction for those who may have missed it last week. So you were in a abusive relationship, marriage.
Yes.
And while you were dealing with that, you found out that you had cancer. Tell us about the type of cancer, because most people, when they hear the word cancer, they think all cancer is the same, but they're different forms. So tell us about what type it was and how all of that unfolded.
Well, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. It's a lymphoma. It affects your lymphatic system, which affects the immune system. It started affecting the white blood cells and just really started affecting my immune system. And this is a true story. We were sleeping in our bed. I was still married. We were sleeping, and I feel like God woke me up, and there was a lymph node that had enlarged under my armpit, on the borderline of the armpit breast tissue area. And I woke up. I was married at the time, so I woke him up, and I was like, do you feel this? And I put his hand where my hand was at, and he was like, yes. And we were both kind of like staring at each other, kind of spooked, because I didn't know what it was. The only symptoms that I had was that I was feeling tired, but, I was married, mother of two at the time, commuting. We lived in Maryland at the time, so I was commuting into DC every day. So I just thought it was just my routine was just kind of wearing me out, from commuting an hour plus a day back and forth, then rushing home to get the kids and fixing dinner and doing all the things that parents do when they get off from work. Just thought I was exhausted. And the ironic thing was that I had just had a physical 2 months before I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was told I was healthy. They test everything, because I had complained about being tired. They had tested me for diabetes. They test thyroid. They did numerous testing, but didn't test for that. And so I went to the doctor a few weeks later and was then diagnosed with cancer.
And so hearing that news for the first time, how did that make you feel? What did it send you into an immediate tailspin, or how did you process it?
I was numb for a while. I think I was in shock, because I thought, like, I'm young. I was just had a physical, was told I was healthy. So how do I go from healthy to being diagnosed with cancer? I never had any health issues before. So it really threw me. I felt like, they told me that the type of cancer that I had was for like younger people because it's in the blood disorder cancer, like in the leukemia, lymphoma, that's all in the same family. So I was like, well, if this is for young people, like how did I get this? I was also told it was more common in Caucasians. And so I was just like blown away, like how could I get this? And so I was scared. I'm like, what's gonna happen to my children? Is my husband gonna be strong enough to handle this? Am I gonna be strong enough to handle this? We were middle class living in the suburbs. We had a good life. We had a good thing going on. So it was kind of like, what are we going to do? I mean, we did have our problems, but financially we was good. So so then I started worrying about what were we going to do financially? Who's going to help me with the kids? Because they were still young at the time. And so it was just all these different things. Am I going to die? Am I going to survive this? I was blown away.
All right, here we go. All right. So when you were diagnosed, what stage cancer was it? What stage was it? Because you said you had a prior physical and apparently they must have missed it. Did they ever explain that part, how they didn't see it in the physical that you had previous before you got diagnosed?
They didn't test for it. They tested everything else but that. And
oh, okay.
there should be a law where when you receive a physical, they should start including testing for cancer as well. As women, when we have our annual exams, they do the self breast exams and they do the mammograms, but they don't test for any other type of cancer. And I do think that they should incorporate that with our annual exams.
And what stage was it?
It was the first stage.
It was the first stage. Okay. And
but the scary part is that if that lymph node had never enlarged, I would have never known I had cancer.
Wow. But you were feeling fatigue and tired though. Did that have anything to do with it? Or that was
yes.
Or the fatigue was coming from something else?
Yes. They do say with this particular cancer, fatigue, weight loss, night sweats, fevers, but those are some of the common things with other illnesses. So cancer wasn't on the radar. They didn't check for it.
So for those who are watching tonight by Zoom and by Facebook, we brought Tawana on the last week and this week, and her story is such a great testimony, and I wanted her to tell our story so we could all get a chance to listen to it. And for maybe those who are watching tonight, maybe you're dealing with something in your life, you're going to get a chance tonight. It may not be cancer. It could be anything that you have going on that could be a challenge to you, that Tawana is going to share with us how God brought her through it. And we're going to find out tonight, did anything else come along with it, like depression or anything else? I want you to know that she is a survivor.
Yes.
The name of her book is Through It All, I'm Still Standing. So we're bringing this on to give you hope that whatever situation that you find yourself in, there is hope for you as well. Most people, they think about death as soon as they hear the big C word. They don't know what they're going to do. I think the initial shock has caused so many things to go through your mind. But after you can get over that initial shock and figure out what you're dealing with, and I think probably things started to get a little bit better for you.
Yes. Initially, I was, I just couldn't believe it at first. And then I didn't really have time to focus on it because I still had children that needed me. So even when I was first diagnosed, I ended up having a biopsy done. Well, let me back up. They ended up having a team of doctors. So I had an oncologist, I had a doctor that was for the radiation, and then I had a doctor for the chemotherapy. And so there was a team plus my primary doctor. So they all worked together to fight the cancer, and they fought it aggressively. Regardless if it was stage 1, stage 4, they still fought it, they're treated it the same way. And so I had to come to terms with that. I had a port put into my chest. That was hard to deal with, and I still have a scar to this day from when they opened it up and removed it.
Tell for those who may not understand what the purpose of that port is. Tell our viewers tonight, what was the reason why they put that port in your chest?
The port was put into my chest for the chemotherapy. You know, they inject a lot of basically poison into your body. And so the needles are pretty thick or pretty big. So what they do is hook you up to an IV and run the medicine through the IV through the port. So it just the port is attached to like one of the main veins in your body. And so when they're doing the IV, everything is just ran straight through.
How quickly was the turnaround once you got diagnosed? How quickly did they want to start the treatment? Now you had radiation or chemo?
I had both.
You had both.
Mm-hmm.
So how soon did they start the treatment once after you was diagnosed?
They wanted to start it immediately, but I was in the midst of planning my grandmother a surprise birthday party. We were living in DC, she was living in Kentucky. And so I was like, you know, I have to plan this part. I got to finish this party. And so immediately after that party, we came back home, and that Monday we had the biopsy done, came back, you know, positive, and started the treatments immediately. They didn't want to waste any time.
Before we get into the treatment, did you have anybody else in your family that had ever been diagnosed with this type of cancer?
No, I had a grandfather that was diagnosed with prostate cancer, but not this type of cancer. But actually later on, actually a couple years ago, I had a cousin diagnosed with the same cancer. With
the same thing. You found out after fact.
She was just diagnosed maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, okay. And she survived it?
Yes.
Okay, so give us a little rundown about the treatment and how did it make you feel? How many times a week did you have to go for the treatment, and what were some of the side effects, and how did it make you feel?
Well, with the chemo, it was 4 months, once every week. I stayed sick, and it seemed like once I started the chemo, the second treatment of the chemo, I stayed sick constantly. I might have felt good like maybe one day, but then the next day I was having the treatment again and stayed sick the entire time. Just nauseous smells, like garlic, cologne, anything that had like a strong scent just made me just sick to the stomach. So I had to be very cautious as to what I was eating, what I was smelling, who I was around. My doctor said not to even go to church, stay at home. He was saying that even a handshake, the germs from touching someone's hand could kill me. Common cold could have killed me because my whole immune system had been wiped out. So I had to be very cautious as to who I came around. When my kids came home, I had to strip them down at the door, make them take off all their clothes, and to put on take baths and put on something clean, just to prevent germs and getting infected.
Now, while you were going through these treatments, you talked about last week that you dealt with some depression.
Yes.
When did that kick in?
Probably after the chemo. I took a month. They let me have a month off, and then I started back with the radiation, and that was like every day. I think the radiation kind of triggered it because, well, let me back up. It started with when my hair started falling out. I've always had long hair, And so this was the first time, it was coming out in gobs. And so I had to make the choice to just go ahead and shave it off. And so I felt very insecure. So, everything is changing. My body is changing. My hair is gone. I don't know if I'm going to survive this. Who's going to, all these thoughts about my kids, then I'm dealing with the emotional abuse from my husband at the time. He's in my ear about wanting me, even though I'm having these chemo treatments, he wanted me to get a job. So that financial pressure was, he was drilling that in my ear. So I'm dealing with that. Even getting accused of cheating, just all these things that are going on. And I'm like, I'm fighting for my life. And you're focused on, finances. You're focused on me cheating. I can't even be around my kids like that. And so, so it was just so much that was going on. And like, even with the radiation, my skin started changing different colors. I was 4 shades of brown. Some parts were like extremely dark. And I think I was explaining last week how I could take a washcloth and dead skin would be all over the washcloth. So it was all these things that were just going on that I was dealing with that, yes, I did deal with depression and anxiety.
And with your husband, with all these the crazy mindset that he have, that's about what I could call it. What other type of support system did you have while you were going through this? Because your kids was how old?
They were maybe about 8, 9 years old, 10 years old.
So they couldn't really do much.
No, they didn't even know I was sick because, I still had on that brave mom face. I still, did what I could. They just thought I was tired all the time.
You talked about how you was losing your hair and you had to at the end up shaving it all off. Mm-hmm. Did they ask you about why did you have to shave your hair off?
No, they never questioned it.
Okay. So what did you do for support?
Well, thank God, my grandmother has always been by my side from day one. She was there for the birth of each child. She was there for every milestone. She was right there by my side. So she came to live with us. She helped out with the kids. She cooked. She did everything. And she allowed me to rest. So I thank God that I had her, between her and my mom.
Where were you at the time, your spiritual mindset? What was your walk with God like?
That's what got me through. I prayed. I remember plenty of times being in the bathroom, taking a hot bath, listening to gospel music, and it just got me through. If I would do most of my crying and just kind of pulling myself together and, behind closed doors in the bathroom. And then when I came out, I felt refreshed. I felt stronger. I felt wiser. I just felt complete. And if I didn't have that faith in God, if I didn't have that foundation set in me from early, we was, brought up with church at a very young age. If I didn't have that foundation, I would have been lost. I would have been broken.
So you had a month of the chemo and then a month of the radiation?
I had 4 months of chemo.
4 months of chemo.
Mm-hmm. And I had 1 month off, and then I had a full month of radiation, where it was every day, 5 days a week.
Now, what was the side effects from the radiation?
Just my skin was irritated. My skin, and like I said, it burnt in the areas where I was being treated at. And so, like I said, the burnt skin and just the sensitivity of my skin, and then not being able to be out in the sun. They didn't want me out in the sun. They didn't want me out anywhere. Had to stay in like shaded areas. It did affect my throat, would sometimes hurt sometimes. So I just had to be very careful about certain things that I ate and what I was drinking. And like I said, I definitely had to stay in shaded or inside areas.
We know how the enemy plays with our mind. At any point did you think you were not going to make it through this? You were going to die?
It crossed my mind quite a bit. I didn't know. I didn't know. Even the smell of the poison You know, I used to, and I still remember the poisoning to this day. I even remember the smell of it. Um, it was just trying to figure out, like, is this going to really help me or is this going to kill me? You just think that they injected like a poison into my body to wipe out my entire immune system. So all the good and bad cells were gone. And so I didn't know I could, because like I said, even a common cold could have killed me. So I struggled with that. You know, I even started like dealing with anxiety because I'm like, if someone touches me, or, you know, am I going to get sick by something they've touched, or if their hands are not clean, or if there's a certain germ that, you know, kids are filled with germs when they come home from school every day. You know, that was the scariest part right there, allowing my children to go to school and to come home and not knowing if, you know, something that they touched or, you know, someone that they're around, you know, is going to come home to me.
So throughout the chemo and the radiation, did you have any type of setbacks?
No.
No. Okay. So when did you start seeing the turnaround where things were looking like, okay, I'm going to pull through this? At what point did you start feeling like yourself again?
I guess when I was finally told that that I was in remission, that everything was gone, you know, my hair started growing back. You know, I had like a little curly fro. And so I just had to reinvent myself. I wasn't the old Tawana that I was before. I was different. I had changed. My mindset changed. Before I was so career driven. I was, enjoyed, what I did. But that my experience humbled me. It made me start appreciating every single day and not taking life for granted. So I wanted to be at home more with my family. I wanted my kids to know me. You know, cancer is there's not a cure for that. You're only in remission. So I didn't know at any time to come back. So I started valuing each day as it's my last day. I started wanting to be with my kids every day. I found pleasure being with them. So every activity, every event, I volunteered at the schools. It took my mind off of everything, and my kids were happy to see me more because I was grinding at first. My whole perspective in life changed. That's what gave me peace.
You talked about your worst day while you were taking treatment. What was it like?
I was sick as a dog. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to smell anything. I didn't want anyone to see me feeling broken. I felt broken. I didn't feel loved. I didn't even know if my husband would if he cared whether I lived or died, the way that his behavior was. And so that was a challenge. But then I still had God just giving me the strength and the courage to push through, and thinking about I was not going to allow any other person, any other woman, anyone to raise my children but me.
And so when you were going through this, you didn't have the support of your then husband. What did your grandmother think about his actions at the time?
She wasn't pleased at all. She tried to stay neutral. She tried to remain out of our business and let me handle it. And so she just kind of kept her peace. She still was friendly. She still did what she's supposed to do. She stayed out of our business.
So I want to give an opportunity for anybody that might have a question for you tonight, based on everything that y'all have heard tonight so far. Those of you who are on Zoom and Facebook Live, if you have any questions, you can quickly put them into the chat box if you want to ask Tawana any question that you have, something that I may not have asked yet, or you want to know about. This is your opportunity to do it. If not, we'll keep pushing.
I also want to say that my grandmother, she was the laid back one. She's the one that stayed neutral. But my mother, on the other hand, she wasn't that nice. She let it be known that she didn't like it. She would tell him about himself, and and she would go on about her way. So my mom and my grandmother were like night and day when it came to handling him.
So the divorce came after you survived the cancer, or How
Yes.
long after when you were in remissions, when did the divorce happen?
Probably about maybe 5 years later.
5 years later. Okay. So you talked about this book that you wrote while you were going through cancer. You wanted to try and figure out how to tell your children. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that book and how you explained it to them and how did they respond?
Well, when I was first diagnosed, I didn't know how to explain what I was going through to my children. All they knew was that mommy didn't feel well, and that was it. And so I remember going to different libraries, bookstores, trying to find books that African American children or even children, any other ethnic group book that my kids could relate to, and I couldn't find anything. I did find one book, but of course it was a Caucasian family that lived in the suburbs and things of that nature. So I did purchase that book. I read it to them. They still didn't understand what was going on. So, and that's what prompted me to write this children's book. It's more so in layman's terms. It more so explains the process, the doctors. It talks about, the hair loss. It talks about me being tired. My kids used to want to always play kickball or outside and running, and I couldn't do those things anymore. And so it shares a story about us being outside and playing, and then me being tired and not able to. And so my kids now, they're very proud of the book, and I can't wait for it to be published and out for everyone to review. I've also been working with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society about sharing the book with patients there as well. And so they actually want me to share my story with them as well.
Excellent. And you've been in remission for how long?
It's been about 15 years now.
15 years. Wow. God is good.
Let me say this. This is when I was diagnosed, they told me that I would never be able to help children again. And so I was okay with that because I've already had a girl and a boy, so I was good. And long story short, I did end up getting pregnant again. And that's how my third child came about. So the doctors were not right. Yes, it was more of a high risk pregnancy, but I was able to carry him full term. And that's for my youngest son, Justin, the one that's in high school now. He also tested positive for Down syndrome. And so they were even trying to talk me into not even carrying the child or even to have an abortion. And I was like, I just got to see this through. And thank God that I did, because he came out a healthy 6-pound baby boy, and nothing was wrong with him at all. It was a false positive.
Okay. All right. You talked about your immune system. What is your immune system like now? Do you have any type of long-term effects with your immune system? Do you catch colds easily or infections easily, or you don't have any issues with it now?
Yes, I do. Like I said, I have 3 children, and every time they get something, I get it. And it lasts longer for me, but yes, I do.
Okay. Are you taking any type of medication for any of this now?
No, just I just basically make sure I take my vitamins, extra vitamin C, vitamin D, and that's it.
Do you ever have any thoughts that this might come back again?
Yes. It's always lingering in the back of my head. I still get checked out yearly, just to be on the safe side. And thank God, I'm still in remission. But yes, I do.
15 years, that's a blessing from God. And I want people to understand tonight that when we hear stories such as yours, there is hope. We might have to go through a storm for the first half, but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, I was diagnosed with cancer. I was told I wasn't gonna be able to have any kids. I was told that my baby was gonna have Down syndrome. He's healthy. He's bouncing around here now, driving me crazy, but he's here. I think that he actually brought more life into me. I think that he he gave me hope. He brought a smile to my face when I wanted to cry. You know, he brought joy when I was sad. He just has been this, you know, I called him my miracle baby because he wasn't supposed to be here, but God had other plans.
Is there anything that you can't do now because of going through the cancer?
No,
So you can do anything that you want to do.
so far, yes, I'm good. I'm healthy.
Excellent, excellent. And this has been. I'm hoping that this will help somebody tonight um, feel some hope where they might be in the early stages of, and it don't even have to be cancer. It can be anything that you're going through in your life, and all you hearing is bad news. And sometimes you're not hearing anything at all because they might not be able to tell you what's going on. But what would you tell that person tonight that's watching or listening?
I would tell them to have faith, hold on, pray, and talk to God, develop your relationship even deeper with God. I'm telling you, he got me through. And when the doctor said no, when the doctor said you have this, when the doctor said you can't do this, when the doctor said, the doctor said, and the doctor said, but God said something else. So hold on to that because the doctors don't know everything.
And so right now, you have 3 children, and they're how old now?
My son is 22. I have a daughter that's 20, and then my youngest is 14.
And the youngest one was the last one that you had that's bouncing around the house that brought so much joy.
Yes, it's my youngest son, Justin. Yes, I'm surprised he was just here setting up everything for me. He makes sure everything I'm good. He's been like a ray of sunshine. I mean, everyone that meets him say that, you know, he's very well mannered. He makes sure I'm taken care of. If I'm in the kitchen and he hears me knock over something, he's running down the steps like, "Mom, are you okay?" I mean, he's that kid. He makes sure that everyone is good. He smiles. He's in good spirits. He had brought me so much joy, especially as a young boy, even as a baby. He just has brought so much pleasure to my life. And I do think there's a reason for him to be here.
Did you have any issues with your job at the time? You were working when you got diagnosed, right?
Right.
What type of work did you do?
I worked in advertising. So my job at the time when I was first diagnosed, the whole company donated leave to me. So while my husband was nitpicking about money and wanting me to go back to a job, my job had already donated leave to me where I was getting paid my full salary the entire time I was sick. That's how blessed I was. Yes, the whole company, everyone donated leave to me, everyone.
And that says a lot about who you are, that people wanted to take their time and donate it to you so you would not miss a beat as far as financial wise. Because we do know when people are going through certain situations, and again, it don't have to be cancer, it can be anything, that when you have to be down and you can't go to work, those are things that linger in the back of your mind. You know, am I going to get fired? Or will I be able to work again? If I can't work again, is there some type of disability you want? And this is, you start thinking of all these things in your head. And so, and I'm sure some of that probably came up a little bit.
It did because I decided afterwards, well, my job ended up moving into Virginia and my commute at that time from Maryland was already over an hour. So it was going to be like an hour and a half, you know, plus depending on traffic. And so I decided I didn't want to do that. And so when they moved, disability did kick in. So I started receiving like, I think like 80% and maybe 60%, you know, and then unemployment kicked in. So I was still receiving money coming in the entire time.
And so You didn't miss a beat.
No, I was blessed.
And we can give God all the glory and the honor tonight. Uh,
Absolutely.
um, so for those who are worrying, for those who are stressing out, wondering how your circumstances and your situation is going to play out, I would say to you tonight, the same God that brought Tawana through is the same God that can bring you through. And God don't love one no more than he loved the other. When he went to Calvary, he died for us all. That blood that he shedded, it wasn't just for one or two, it was for all of us. So we are grateful for having God in our life. And I'm sure that strengthened your walk with him even more.
Absolutely. Because I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to worry at all. The things that crossed my mind, he answered before I even had an answer to it. He provided before I even knew how it was going to work out. He did that. And if he did it for me, he definitely can do it for each one of you.
And you know what? The beautiful part of it is you were facing a double whammy.
Yes.
And when I say a double whammy, you was already dealing with a marriage that was on the rocks, where you
Yes.
didn't have any support from your husband. And then
No.
hearing this news that you're diagnosed with cancer, they're going to have to start aggressively with treatment. All of those days that you didn't feel good for after the treatment, then having to hear the person who should have had your back tell you that you weren't this and you weren't that. But to look at you today, we can't do nothing but give God glory. And I tip my hat off for you. And I think everybody that's watching tonight, we're glad that you didn't give up. We're glad that you fought through this and you were able to come on tonight and tell us your story. We read so many stories in the Bible about what certain patriots went through, but God is still working miracles. He just didn't use the people back in the Bible days, but he's using us. Every time we can hear a testimony, something like yours, it gives us hope to say, you know what? My situation is not too far gone for the Lord to step in and turn it around. And we know, we all of us that's probably on tonight, we serve a turnaround God that's able to do anything except for fail. So I see the smile on your face. I see the joy on your face. And we thank God that you didn't give up. You made it by the grace of God. And you just didn't sit down on your story. But here you are telling it on this platform tonight. You have put it in a book form. And for those who are watching, if you've been through something, there's probably a book inside of you somewhere that the Lord wants to get out of you. And so we encourage all of those tonight that you might think your story is not important, but you never know how important it is until you begin to tell it. And when we begin to tell our story and that thing begins to unfold and we see the manifestation of God in the midst of all of it, it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Through it all, I'm Still Standing came about because at first I was kind of leery about like sharing my story. I didn't know how people would respond to it. I didn't know if people would take it seriously or I'd be talked about. I had all these doubts running through my head, but then something in me just kept saying, share your story, because through it all, through the cancer, through the emotional abuse, through dealing with the narcissistic behavior, dealing with financial abuse, dealing with being put down, made me question my worth, disrupting my peace. Through it all, I'm still standing.
So when you talked about how it made you question your peace, where are you now after the divorce, after the cancer? Where are you now? Are you thinking about pushing the button again for marriage, or you are content with where God has you? Do you feel bitter that the marriage didn't work out. Where are you now?
You know, in the beginning, I was embarrassed because I felt like I couldn't keep my marriage together. You know, I kept putting a lot of the blame on me because I left. But I've realized that it takes two to make a marriage work and not just one. For one, and knowing my worth, I think that I displayed strength by walking out. I didn't have a lot of money to work with. I barely had two nickels to rub together, but I was determined that I was not going to stay in that situation. And when my kids and I first moved out and we slept in our home for the first night, when I tell you the peace that came, not just for me, but for my children, we were so happy. It just felt like a burden had been lifted. And I'm at peace. I'm open to marriage, but I know what I want. I know what I'm not going to tolerate. I know my worth. And so if you can't come to me correct, don't come at me at all.
Say it, sister. Say it, say it, say it, say it. And for somebody that's out there tonight that may be struggling with knowing their worth, what would you say to them?
Oh my gosh. I think that when you start knowing your worth, when you start loving yourself, you feel confident. You feel like there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you can't overcome. And I think that when you start loving yourself more, you won't tolerate a lot of things. You won't deal with disrespect. You don't have to. And a person that comes in knowing, he will already know, or she would already know that they can't do, because they know you won't tolerate any of that type of nonsense. So know your worth, love yourself, take time for yourself, get to know you, love you, forgive yourself. I think a lot of times we carry a lot of burdens, like, like I said, I felt guilty about leaving my marriage. I had to forgive myself to find peace. I had to forgive him to find peace. And I didn't say I forgot, but I did forgive to find that peace.
Now that's you. I want to touch on this part right here where you say you had to forgive him. Did you have a conversation with him after everything was over, and where you said to him, "I forgive you"?
We did. I had a conversation with him. It took some years. It didn't happen overnight. It took some
Right.
years. But I did have a conversation with him, and I told him that I forgave him. He didn't apologize to me. I think the one thing he did say to me is, if I did something to hurt you, I apologize. That's not an apology, because you're not owning what you did. You're not taking ownership in the problems and the chaos that you caused. So no, that didn't work for me, but I did apologize. I did say I was sorry, and that I forgive you for all that you've done to me.
And the forgiveness is important, right?
Absolutely, because you can't move forward, because what ends up happening is that you drag all that emotional abuse, all that baggage, you drag that into other relationships. You have to resolve all those issues before even entertaining someone else.
And I'm sure your kids saw some of the stuff that was going on. They recognized probably how bad the marriage was. What did you do for them as far as getting the help that you needed for them, repairing maybe some things that was broken that they seen while you were going through this?
They more so seen a lot of things that he did after the fact. They didn't see a lot in the marriage. I think my oldest started noticing, little things towards the end, but it was more so after the divorce. Like, he acted worse than he did before. He really cut up. And so we were in therapy. I had the kids in counseling. I reached out to each one of their teachers, letting them know that what was going on. So I talked to the teachers, the counselors at the school, the principal, just to keep them informed of what was going on. So use your resources at the school, because they are there to help. We had outside family therapy, we had individual therapy. So I made sure they were covered on all parts.
Did this affect your kids while they were in school?
Yes. I think I noticed more so with my daughter. I noticed her grades started dropping. She didn't really care about her grades or anything. And your children. So she was the smartest one out of everyone. So I knew that there was, that she was struggling with what we were going through. And so we just worked through it. And, and now she's a business student, in college, doing her thing.
All right. God be the glory. 15 years in remission and still pushing, and you don't look like not 1 ounce that you've been through cancer and all the stuff that you have explained to us from last week to this week. You can't tell from looking at you tonight. And, we've heard the phrase, I don't look like what I've been through.
Well, thank you. I welcome that and I receive that.
So thank you again. I do want to, before we wrap this up tonight, I do want to give any other opportunities for anybody that might have a question for Tawana. We thank God for her taking the time to come out and do part 2 tonight to share her story. And I pray that through her story, it has given someone hope tonight in whatever situation you're dealing with. She's talked about so many different pieces, loving yourself and your self-worth, and maybe somebody needed to hear that tonight. We never know what people are going through. You can never judge a book by its cover. So for whatever reason, I pray that you have received something out of last week if you were on, and this week as well. So if we don't have anybody to have any questions, Tawana, I want to give you an opportunity to give you closing remarks. And while you are giving closing remarks, I'm going to ask all of those that are on tonight, if you would just give Tawana a shout out in the chat box, tell her how much you appreciated her story and her transparency, and sharing what she went through with a bad marriage, cancer, all of the treatments, everything that she had to deal with. She was totally transparent for us tonight. She laid it all on the field, so we could probably be a better person or be a better person in whatever situation that we're dealing with, just to give you hope for where you might find yourself tonight. So if you could just go into the chat box real quick for us tonight and give her some love for taking the time last week and this week, and whatever encouraging remark you want to give her, you feel free to do it. You can do it at this time. And while you're doing it in the chat box, let me see. Okay, there's a question here. Do you understand your journey? Why you went through what you, okay, let me get it here. Do you understand your journey? Why you went through what you've been through? Are you still discovering things about your journey?
I used to question my purpose. I remember talking to a cousin and I was in tears, like not really understanding what my purpose was or what I should be doing. And that's how the book came about. That's how the magazine came about. That, like I said, the title of the book is Through It All, I'm Still Standing. The magazine called Empower Atlanta. It's about empowering ourselves to make a difference, to inspire, to educate, to learn. I think sometimes we get complacent in life. And I realized that at any age, you can grow, you can learn, you can be a better person. You don't have to be stagnant. You don't have to be what people say you are or think you are. Love yourself. I had to learn how to love me. I think that I poured so much into everyone else that I wasn't pouring anything back into myself. And I think that's what contributed even more to the depression, the anxiety. But once I started loving me, pouring back into me, I started realizing my journey. And my journey is to share my story. My journey is to make a difference. My journey is to, I think sometimes God, because one of my friends told me that she was like, you're the strongest person I've ever met in my life, because all the things that you've gone through, I don't know if I could have survived that. And, and I had to like sit back and think about that, like, wow, like that's really deep for someone to say. And I think sometimes God do put certain people through a lot to be able to teach others, to be able to inspire others, and hopefully to make a difference and to not fall short. And I think I've done that. I've been pushing through. I'm proud. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of, the children that I've raised. And this is just the beginning.
It's an incredible story because there's so many pieces to your story, and for you to, after going through the divorce and still raising your children with everything that you've been through, that ain't nothing but God to hold that together.
Nothing but.
So again, we say thank you tonight for being transparent. Okay, where are the thank yous for? There you go. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that. And so, Tawana, what would you wrap up? What would you say to somebody tonight that have heard your story, that may not necessarily be going through cancer, but going through some situation in their life, and they just can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and they feel like there's no reason to go on? What would you say to them in closing?
I would say to always have faith. Never doubt faith. Faith that got me through. Faith can get you through. Talk to someone. I think a lot of times we suffer in silence because we're embarrassed or ashamed about what people might think or say, or not want to help. I have a problem with asking people for help. I'm still a work in progress on that one. But I do say, find someone to talk to, whether it's your pastor, bishop, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a friend, sister, parent. Find someone to talk to, a professional. You don't have to suffer in silence. And that's the biggest thing I want someone to take away from this. Find your peace, know your worth, and never suffer in silence.
Thank you so much. You are a rock star in the kingdom of God. And thank you again for sharing your story. Now, for someone that might want to get your book, how would they do it?
They can go to my website. It's www.tawanna, TOWANNAHOGUE.com.
Okay, T, can we get that?
Through It All, I'm Still Standing is there, and the children's book will be there shortly.
Okay. T, did you hear that? Can you say it one more time? Give your website one more time.
www.TOWANNAHOGUE.com. You can also find it on Amazon as well. If you type in Through It All, I'm Still Standing.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And we want to support our Black entrepreneurs and authors. And so let's show Tawanna some love. And the book may not necessarily might be for you. You can get it and sew it into somebody else's life where you think it might be a blessing. So it's the information is in the chat box. You can see it. Go to her website. Be a blessing to her because she's definitely has been a blessing to us. She's bared out her soul. She's told her story. And she don't feel embarrassed. She feels free.
Free.
God bless you. Thank all of you tonight for coming on and joining us on Let's Talk About It. For those who are on Facebook Live, thank you so much for joining and tuning in tonight. And prayerfully, we won't see you next week. Next week is Thanksgiving, so we won't be on next week, but we will definitely be on the following week after that. So thank you again for tuning in. Tawanna, we love you. We're praying for you. We're praying for your children, and we're believing God for the best for everything that you touch and every place your foot stand on. We believe in that God gonna bless you and give you the desires of your heart.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. God bless you. God bless you to everyone that's watching tonight. We say good night to you until we meet again. Take care, everyone.